The Silence Protocol Commander Zextal of the Valdorian Imperial Fleet stood before the massive holographic display in his command center, studying the data that had been troubling him for weeks. The crystalline structures that served as his fingers traced patterns in the air as he manipulated the three-dimensional star map floating before him. Red markers indicated the last known positions of 17 different vessels, all belonging to the same species. All human. The Valdorian Empire had ruled this sector of the galaxy for over 3,000 years. Their biomechanical ships could traverse vast distances in days. Their weapons could crack planets. And their technology was so advanced that most species surrendered without firing a single shot. They had cataloged over 200 sentient species, and humans ranked somewhere near the bottom of the list. In terms of technological advancement and military threat, that's what made the current situation so puzzling. Show me the timeline. Again, Zextal commanded, his voice carrying the harmonic frequencies that marked him as a high-ranking Valdorian officer. Lieutenant Kithara, his intelligence officer, manipulated her console with practiced efficiency. The disappearances began 43 solar cycles ago. The first was a human cargo vessel traveling between their colonies, then a research ship, then 3 more cargo haulers. Each time, the ship simply vanished from all scanning equipment. And no distress signals. None, Commander. That's what makes this anomaly so strange. Every other species we've encountered sends out emergency communications when they're in danger. It's a universal instinct, but these human ships simply stopped existing. Zextal's mandibles clicked together, a sign of deep thought among his people. The Valdorians had been monitoring human space for decades. Ever since the primitive species had developed faster than light travel, humans were considered barely worthy of attention. They fought among themselves constantly. Their ships were crude constructions of metal and composite materials. And their weapons were projectile-based projectiles that couldn't even penetrate basic energy shields. Yet something was making their ships disappear without a trace. Have we detected any unknown technology in human space? Zextal asked. That's where it gets interesting, sir. Kithara brought up a new display. Our long-range sensors have detected unusual energy signatures near several human colonies. The patterns don't match any known technology in our databases. Unknown technology? From humans? Zextal's voice carried disbelief. They'd barely mastered fusion power. Yes, sir. But the signatures are definitely artificial, and they're getting stronger. Before Zextal could respond, his communications officer, Vorthem, interrupted with an urgent tone. Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the Border Patrol. They've encountered a human vessel. Put it through. The holographic display shifted to show Captain Drexoth, commander of the patrol vessel Harmony's Edge. The captain's usually calm demeanor seemed disturbed. Commander Zextal, we've intercepted a human ship attempting to cross into our territory. When we moved to investigate, something unexpected happened. Explain? The human ship didn't attempt to flee or surrender, sir. Instead, it began scanning us. Actively scanning us. Their technology shouldn't be capable of penetrating our shields. But somehow, they were analyzing our hull composition, our power systems, even our weapons arrays. Zextal felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. Did you disable their scanning equipment? We tried, sir. We fired a low-power pulse designed to temporarily disable their electronics. But somehow they adapted. Their systems came back online within seconds, and they began scanning us even more intensively. Where is this human ship now? That's the problem, Commander. After completing their scans, they simply ... left. They jumped to hyperspace using a drive system we've never seen before. It was completely silent. No energy emissions. No gravitational distortions. One moment they were there, the next they were gone. Zextal exchanged glances with his senior staff. In 3,000 years of galactic dominance, no species had ever developed technology that the Valdorians couldn't detect or understand. Send me all the data from this encounter immediately. Already transmitted, sir. But, Commander, there's something else. Before they left, they sent us a message. A message What did they say? Captain Drexoff's image flickered as he consulted his records. The message was brief and in their standard language. It said, "Thank you for the demonstration. We understand. Now." The communication ended, leaving the command center in tense silence. Zextel stared at the star map, his mind racing through possibilities. Humans were supposed to be primitive. They were supposed to be predictable. They were supposed to be irrelevant. Kithara, I want a full analysis of all human activities in the past year. Not just the disappearances. Everything. Trade routes, military movements, research projects, even their entertainment transmissions. Sir, that will require significant resources. Are you certain humans warrant this level of investigation? Lieutenant, in the past 43 cycles, 17 human ships have vanished without explanation. They've developed technology we can't identify. And now they're actively scanning our most advanced patrol vessels and thanking us for demonstrations. Yes, I'm certain they warrant investigation. As his staff began their work, Zextal continued studying the star map. The red markers indicating the disappeared human ships formed a pattern that was slowly becoming clear. They weren't random disappearances, they were strategic. The vanished ships had been traveling to specific locations throughout human space, forming a network of some kind. Hours passed as data streamed in from across the sector. What they discovered changed everything. The humans hadn't been fighting meaningless wars among themselves, as the Valdorians had assumed. They had been conducting elaborate military exercises, testing different strategies and technologies against opponents who knew their capabilities. Every conflict had been designed to push human innovation forward. Their supposedly primitive ships weren't crewed at all. They were modular. Each vessel could be rapidly reconfigured for different missions. What appeared to be simple metal construction was actually a sophisticated adaptive armor system that could alter its properties based on the threat it faced. Most disturbing of all, human research stations hadn't been studying their own solar system, as intelligence reports had suggested. They had been analyzing the technology and tactics of every species in the galactic community. Somehow, they had been monitoring civilizations across dozens of star systems without anyone detecting their observation networks. Commander, Kithara's voice was strained. You need to see this. The holographic display showed a comprehensive analysis of human communication patterns over the past year. Hidden within their routine transmissions were coded messages, and the encryption was sophisticated beyond anything humans should have been capable of creating. We've managed to decode some of the messages, she continued. They're not just coordinating their activities. They're sharing technical data about every species they've encountered, including us. How much do they know about us? Everything, sir. Ship designs, weapon capabilities, political structure, even our expansion patterns over the past century. But that's not the worst part. Zextal's patience was wearing thin. Continue. The messages reference something called Protocol 7. We don't know what it is, but every human settlement, every ship, every research station has been preparing for it. They've been stockpiling resources, modifying their technology, and training their population for something they call the inevitable encounter. Before anyone could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the command center. The tactical display lit up with new contacts appearing at the edge of the system. Not human ships, something else entirely. Report. Zextal barked. Unknown vessels approaching from deep space, sir. Configuration unlike anything in our databases. They're not responding to our hails, and they're moving directly toward our position. The ships on the display were massive, dark structures that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They moved in perfect formation, and their approach was relentless and purposeful. How many? 47 vessels, sir. All larger than our dreadnoughts. Weapons status? Unknown, sir. We can't penetrate their hulls with our sensors. Whatever they're made of, it's blocking all our scanning attempts. Zextal was preparing to order his fleet to defensive positions when unexpected happened. A new group of ships appeared. On the tactical display, emerging from hyperspace between the unknown vessels and the Valdorian fleet. Asterisk. Human ships, but these weren't the crude vessels that Valdorian intelligence had cataloged. These ships were sleek, predatory, and moved with a coordination that spoke of advanced tactical systems. They arranged themselves in a formation that Zextel recognized as a classic defensive screen, but modified in ways that made it more effective against multiple attack vectors. A communication request came through on human frequencies. This is Admiral Saracen of the Terran Defense Fleet, of Voldorian vessels. You are in immediate danger. The approaching ships belong to a species we call the Silence. They have been systematically destroying civilizations across this galaxy for longer than recorded history. You need to move your fleet to coordinates we're transmitting now? Zextal stared at the display in shock. How do humans know about threats we've never encountered? The human admiral's voice came through again, calm and professional. Commander, Zextal, we've been monitoring your communications. We know you're confused about recent events in human space. Those ships that disappeared weren't lost. They were gathering intelligence about the Silence. We've been preparing for this encounter for over 50 years. 50 years? That's impossible. Your species only achieved interstellar travel 30 years ago. That's what we wanted everyone to believe. Commander, the Silence can detect and counter any technology they've encountered before. That's why they've been so successful. But they've never encountered humans before. And they've never faced a species that specializes in the one thing that terrifies them most, which is unpredictability. Commander, we're about to show you why the galaxy is going to learn to fear humanity. But first you need to trust us and move your fleet to those coordinates. Now, the unknown ships were accelerating, their dark hulls beginning to glow with malevolent energy. Whatever weapons they carried were powering up, and the targeting systems were focusing on the Valdorian. Fleet.zex single quotes Tal made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. All ships move to the coordinates provided by the humans. Maintain defensive formation and prepare for combat. As the Valdorian fleet repositioned itself, the human ships began to transform. Their hulls shifted and reconfigured. Weapon systems emerged from hidden compartments. And their formation changed from defensive to something that no military academy in the galaxy had ever taught. Admiral. Chun's voice came through one final time before the battle began. Commander, you're about to witness Protocol 7 after. Today, you'll understand why we kept our true capabilities hidden. The galaxy isn't ready for what humanity can do when we stop pretending to be weak. The dark ships of the Silence opened fire, their weapons creating tears in space itself. But the human fleet was already moving, dancing between the destructive beams with impossible precision. And as they moved, they began to sing. It was a battle hymn in the human language, transmitted on all frequencies. And it spoke of species that refused to surrender, of civilizations that fought against impossible odds, and of the terrible beauty of beings who had learned to turn their own mortality into the ultimate weapon. The real war was about to begin. Asterisk. The Terran Gambit commander Zextal watched in fascination and terror as the human fleet engaged the Silence. Vessels in a style of combat he had never witnessed before. Traditional galactic warfare was methodical, predictable, and based on superior firepower and defensive capabilities. The humans threw all conventional tactics out the airlock. Their ships moved like living creatures, spiraling and weaving through space in patterns that seemed random but were clearly coordinated. When the Silence fired their reality-tearing weapons, the human vessels weren't where the targeting computers predicted they would be. They were somewhere else entirely, often in positions that should have been tactically impossible to reach. How are they moving like that? Lieutenant Kithara asked, her voice filled with awe. Their propulsion systems, Zextal realized. They're not using conventional drives. They're manipulating space-time in microbursts, essentially teleporting short distances instead of flying. But The movement was only the beginning of what made the human fleet terrifying to watch. Their weapons were unlike anything in the galactic databases. Instead of energy beams or projectile weapons, they fired what appeared to be concentrated fields of probability distortion. When these weapons hit the silent ships, the effects were devastating and completely unpredictable. One, silence. Vessels simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, but deleted from reality. Another began aging rapidly, its hull corroding as thousands of years passed in seconds. A third started phasing in and out of dimensions, becoming partially incorporeal and losing all combat effectiveness. Admiral Chen's voice came through the communications again? Commander Zextal, we're going to need your fleet's help, but not in the way you're used to fighting. What do you mean? The silence adapt to any consistent attack pattern within minutes. That's how they've destroyed every civilization they've encountered. But they can't adapt to complete chaos. We need your ships to do something that goes against everything you've been trained to do, which is fight badly, inconsistently, make tactical errors, do things that no reasonable military commander would ever do. Zextal S. Mandibles clicked in confusion. You want us to fight incompetently? Not incompetently. Unpredictably. The silence can counter perfect tactics, but they can't counter pure randomness. Your fleet needs to attack without coordination, change strategies constantly, and make decisions that don't make logical sense. It was the most insane battle plan Zextal had ever heard. It violated every principle of military strategy that the Volturian Empire had developed over millennia. But as he watched the human ships continuing their possible dance of destruction around the Silence Fleet, he began to understand. All ships, he commanded, ignore standard combat protocols. Each vessel will engage independently using whatever tactics their captains deem appropriate, regardless of overall strategy. The result was exactly what Admiral Chun had predicted. The Voldorian fleet, freed from the constraints of coordinated battle plans, began fighting in ways that no computer could predict. One captain decided to ram his ship into a silence vessel while firing all weapons. Another began spinning his ship while firing in random directions. A third started using mining equipment as weapons, the silence fleet, which had been adapting to counter the human attacks, suddenly found itself facing dozens of completely different and irrational combat styles simultaneously. They're adaptive systems designed to analyze and counter logical military strategies began overloading as they tried to process the chaos dot as the battle raged. Admiral Cheen opened the private communication channel to Commander Zextal. I need to explain what you're really seeing here, Commander. This isn't just a battle. This is humanity's coming-of-age ceremony. What do you mean? For 53 years, we've been hiding our true capabilities from the galactic community. We let everyone believe we were primitive, divided, and technologically backward. We did this for one simple reason. We knew the silence were coming. Zextal dodged debris from a destroyed silence vessel as he listened. How could you know about a threat that we've never encountered? Because we've been finding their footprints across the galaxy for decades. Every few thousand years, advanced civilizations simply vanish. The Kareth Empire, the Morphean Collective, the Golden Armada, all gone without explanation. But they left behind traces, fragments of data, warning, messages hidden in quantum static. The human admiral paused as her ship executed an impossible maneuver, sliding between two silence vessels and firing probability weapons that caused both enemy ships to swap positions, resulting in them colliding with each other. We realized that every destroyed civilization had the same weakness. They were predictable. They followed logical military doctrines, used consistent technologies, and fought in ways that could be analyzed and countered. So we decided to become something the silence had never encountered before. What? A species that specialized in being impossible to predict. We spent 50 years deliberately developing the most chaotic, inconsistent, and irrational military capabilities we could imagine. We studied every form of warfare in human history, from ancient tribal conflicts to theoretical mathematical combat models. and we combined them all into something that no computer could analyze. As she spoke, the tide of battle was shifting. The Silence Fleet, unable to adapt to the pure chaos of the combined human Valdorian assault, was beginning to falter. Their ships, designed to counter logical opponents, were being destroyed by tactics that made no tactical sense. But that's not the real reason the galaxy is going to fear humanity, Admiral Chun continued. What is? We don't just fight chaotically when we have to. We think chaotically all the time. Every human approaches problems differently. We don't have a single military doctrine because we don't think the same way. What you're seeing here isn't a special battle tactic. This is just how humans naturally operate when we're not pretending to be normal. This is the other thing the galaxy needs to understand about humanity, the Admiral explained. We're not just unpredictable in war, we're unpredictable in peace as well. One moment we're your worst nightmare, the next we're your best ally. And you'll never be able to predict which one you're getting. A new communication channel opened, and suddenly Commander Zextal found himself in contact with leaders from across human space. Scientists, military commanders, diplomats, artists, and philosophers all speaking simultaneously, but somehow creating a coherent message. Commander Zextal of the Valdorian Empire, they said in unison. Humanity formally requests to join the galactic community as an equal partner. We offer our unique capabilities in exchange for full diplomatic recognition and access to galactic trade networks. Your unique capabilities? The ability to be completely impossible to predict or defeat. In combat, one voice said. The capacity to solve problems that no logical approach can handle, added another. The talent for turning any disadvantage into an unexpected advantage, said a third. And most importantly, Admiral Chun concluded, the willingness to fight battles that everyone else considers unwinnable. Zextal realized that this had all been planned from the beginning. The mysterious disappearances, the technological demonstrations, even the timing of the Silence attack. Humanity had orchestrated first contact to occur under circumstances where their unique capabilities would be most valuable. You manipulated this entire situation, he said, though without anger. There was something almost artistic about the complexity of what humans had accomplished. We prepared for this situation, Admiral Chun corrected. We knew the Silence would eventually reach this sector. We knew the galactic community would need our help to survive them. And we knew that the only way to be accepted as equals was to demonstrate that we were indispensable. And now the galaxy has a choice. You can continue to see humanity as a primitive species that got lucky, or you can recognize us as the most dangerous and valuable allies you'll ever have. Either way, we're not going back to pretending to be weak. As if to emphasize the point, more human ships began appearing throughout the system. Not military vessels, but colony ships, research vessels, and massive construction platforms. In the hours since the battle had ended, humanity had begun the process of establishing a permanent presence in Valdorian space. We're not conquerors, Admiral Chun explained, seeing Zextal's expression. We're partners. But we're partners who refuse to be junior members of the relationship. Over the following days, as diplomats from both species worked out the details of humanity's integration into galactic society, Zextal came to understand the true scope of what had occurred. Humanity hadn't just won a battle against an ancient enemy. They had fundamentally changed the nature of galactic civilization. Every species in the galaxy had developed their technology and military strategies along logical, predictable lines. They had created vast databases of tactical knowledge, sophisticated computer systems to analyze enemy capabilities, and standardized doctrines that could be taught and replicated. Humanity threw all of that out the window. They didn't have a single military doctrine because they didn't need one. Every human commander thought differently, approached problems from unique angles, and created solutions that no computer could predict. They weren't just immune to the Silence's adaptive systems. They were immune to any form of predictive analysis. The months that followed, The galaxy learned why this silence had been so successful for so long, and why they would never be successful again. Every civilization they had encountered had tried to defeat them by becoming more logical, more coordinated, and more predictable. Humanity had defeated them by embracing complete chaos. But the most unsettling realization for the galactic community was what Admiral Chen had said about human nature. This wasn't a special military capability that humans had developed. This was simply how they naturally thought and operated. Every human was a potential source of completely unpredictable strategies, and the galaxy had gained humanity as an ally, but they had also gained something that would fundamentally change everything, a species that could not be understood, predicted, or controlled by any conventional means. As Commander Zextal filed his final report on the incident, he included a warning that would be repeated throughout the galactic community for generations to come. Humanity is now our ally, and for that we should be grateful. Because after seeing what they're capable of, none of us ever want them to be our enemy. The Terran paradox had been solved. Humanity's weakness had always been their greatest strength. And now the galaxy would learn to fear and respect the species that had turned chaos itself into the ultimate weapon. Asterisk.